Please, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, we are pleased. We are now the fastest growing economy in the G7, but obviously there's still more to do. But wages are increasing faster than prices. We had the Bank of England last week cut interest rates for the fourth time since the general election, which will be really good for people paying back loans and those remortgaging or entering a mortgage agreement. So things are going in the right direction, but we know we've got to go further and faster on our plans to kickstart economic growth, because that's the only way to put money in people's pockets and to raise living standards.
Still more to do. Gauge what you mean by that. Are we halfway there, or is this still just the sort of tip of the iceberg?
Well, we inherited an economy that has been stagnating for about a decade. So we were never going to be able to turn that round in, a matter of months. But what we're doing is we're putting in place the steps, for example, working with the regulators to ensure that we reduce the burden of regulation on business. The planning proposals that the OBR have predicted will add over £7 billion to the economy over the next 5 years, which is the biggest non-fiscal lever that the OBR have ever scored. So there are things that we are doing to ensure that we're kick-starting that economic growth. Obviously, we want to see even higher levels of economic growth, but this isn't about lines on a graph. This is about ensuring that people are better off across the country.
Which stems from the lines on the graph.
Indeed it does, but I just want to make that point that it's
that.
About how people feel as well.
No, I totally get it, and things don't change overnight. I just want to sort of come back to where we are in this journey, because, of course, 1 month and 1 quarter might also be temporary, so, no one will get ahead of ourselves, I'm sure. But the annual rate, you said the economy had been stagnating for a decade, which is accurate. But the annual rate that we have this morning, just over 1%, that's still the same point. It's still stagnating. So where do you hope we get to? What is a good level of growth in 2 or 3 years' time? Are we talking 2%, 3%, 4% GDP?
Well, I'm not going to give you a figure, because the truth is with the economy.
We said it's a hope. What's your hope?
Well, look, our mission, as we set out at the election, is that we want the highest sustained growth in the G7. Today we learn 0.7%. That's now, for our first quarter, the highest growing economy in the G7, which is good news. But obviously, I'm not going to give you a figure here as to what good growth looks like, because it will depend on global factors as well. There are all sorts of things that could happen between now and the next election in the next few years. So.
Clearly...
But obviously we'd like to see higher growth, is the point.
No, absolutely. And clearly there's been some trade deals announced recently. One's more of a reprieve with the US, the other is a deeper initial first trade deal with India. In terms of what makes the biggest difference to our GDP growth, is the most important the renegotiation with the EU next week?
Well, these are all important, and it's important to bring tariffs down for businesses. As you said, the UK-India trade deal is very significant, as well as the US trade deal that we have secured with the US, the first country to secure such a deal with the US under this administration. So really, really significant. But so are the other things we're doing. And actually, in order to get growth going and a really healthy rate of growth, we're going to have to operate across all different factors. The EU is our most significant trading partner, and they are our neighbours too. So the reset with the EU is important economically, but it's also important for our security and defence, especially given that we've still got war ongoing on our continent.
In terms of the balance, though, of what's most important, it is sacrificing, for example, some fishing rights worth it to get a much bigger boost to GDP from more rationalised goods trading rules?
Well, there are lots of small businesses in my constituency in Wickham who complain about how difficult and how expensive it is to either import parts into the UK from Europe or export goods to sell into the EU. So we want to bring down those frictions at the border for those small businesses and others, but it's particularly the small businesses are being particularly hard hit, and some of them are giving up doing that sort of exporting altogether. So we've got to ensure that we have a better and closer relationship with the EU, but that does mean operating across all different areas, as I've said. I think the security and defence relationship is really important, and the mood music has changed significantly. I was in Brussels in mid-March, and the mood music between now and a year ago is much better. So we've got a good foundation there.
I guess what I'm getting at is the sort of trade-offs and the clashes that might be happening, the political discussions in cabinet. And I come back to something the Prime Minister said earlier in the week. You know, he said that the idea that immigration boosts economic growth is no longer accepted in this government. Is that your view and the Treasury's view?
Well, we've seen high levels of immigration under the last government, net immigration of nearly 1 million people, and we've seen stagnating growth. So there isn't an easy relationship between those two things. But we need a system that recognises that people want control. They want the government to have control of the borders, control of the numbers coming in, which is why, obviously, in the immigration white paper that we announced on Monday, we're setting forward a plan to bring down the numbers.